This is the lion sweater from the Passap magazine, and it has some interesting techniques and construction. Let's explore it together. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Bas, and in a recent video I installed the deco kit for my Passap knitting machine. This deco kit makes it possible to use punch cards with my knitting machine and, for example, knit a lion sweater like this one. This sweater is in a Passap magazine and the lion motif is just a standard motif, a standard punch card that came with the deco kit. So I think this is a great project to get acquainted with using my deco. And it also has some interesting construction which I have never done before. So it will be a new experience for me. Let's explore it together. Okay, so this is the sweater. Look how cute. And it's from the Passap magazine number 27. And it's pattern 2510. Now I've got the instructions in Dutch. I've got the instructions in English. And this is the test swatch I happened to knit from that punch card when I installed my deco kit. Okay, so let's have a look. The yarn it advises for this pattern, and this is a pattern for an 8-year-old child. So I'm going to knit it for a nephew of mine who isn't 8 years old yet. So if the sizing is a little bit off, it doesn't really matter because he'll grow into it anyway. So the materials used are per 100 gram, 550 meters in length. So that's an indication for the yarn that's suitable for this project. And I've got some cones of yarn here. I knitted a test swatch and magically it almost matched gauge. So I'm going to use this yarn. So this means I'm all ready to go and I can just start knitting. And the construction of this sweater is really simple. It's just a basic rectangle for the front, a basic rectangle for the back, and 2 sleeves. And then the way you sew it together makes the shaping of the shoulders. So let's see how it will turn out. So, starting with figure 1, that's the back. In yellow, knit a 2x2 rib, tubular cast on with racking, bring all needles into a blah blah blah. Yes, all seems familiar. Knit in Fair Isle stitch. According to diagram. Okay, so that's a double bed jacquard. And a double bed jacquard yields this kind of fabric. There are no floats on the back and it's kind of a thick fabric. And because the back is knit only in plain yellow, I'm going to do the jacquard in plain yellow. So I'm going to knit 4 rows in yellow for 1 repeat. And to match my 2x2 ribbing with the thicker double bed jacquard fabric, I'm going to use double the amount of thread for the ribbing that I'm going to use in the jacquard. So if I would knit 1 strand of yellow and 1 strand of brown, then for the ribbing I would use 2 strands of yellow. In this case I'm going to make multiple strands at the same time, but I'm going to double it for the ribbing. Let's get started. And I'm not going to go over every little detail of knitting this sweater. I'm just going to surrender myself to the process and see how it will turn out. I have seen some construction things that I've never done before. And I'm also curious how the Passap magazine thinks you should sew up a sweater like this. Okay, 180 needles, 2x2 rib, double the amount of yellow thread, orange strippers. Okay, 12 rows of ribbing. And now they want me to hang every purl bump from the needles on the front bed onto the empty needles on the back bed, and from the needles on the back bed onto the empty needles on the front bed. So that will fill up all the empty needles and get the knitting ready for double bed jacquard. Okay, so all purl bumps are on the opposite needles. That took quite some time, so I don't want to do it again, so let's hope I don't make any mistakes going forward. Now with yellow, knit straight in Fair Isle. And with Fair Isle they mean the double bed jacquard. So BX, both arrow keys, pushes in a 1-to-1 division. BX left arrow key on the front bed, pushes her out and up against the rail. Okay, and I have to knit with half as much yellow yarn as I did for the ribbing. So basically just knitting sequences of 4 up until row 372. And because the back is just plain yellow, the sequence of 4 you knit with 4 times yellow. Row 372. Finished. So now it says to finish with, knit 2 rows with lock on CX, CX. So that's a circular round. And then a few rows with contrast yarn and release. Now that's something I never did before, but I guess it's because it's a double bed fabric, a double bed jacquard. The circular round makes it possible to sew it into a neat edge afterwards. Now, let's try it. And the back panel is finished, which was actually quite easy. Most of the time went into rehanging the purl bumps when transitioning from ribbing to the Fair Isle knitting. And furthermore, it was just a lot of rows to knit, but that's it. Really easy actually. I am curious how the finished result will look, because I finished with 2 rows of circular knitting, which I haven't done before. So we'll see. Now, on to the front of the sweater. So what does the pattern say? Let me see. Figure 2, that is the front. Knit the ribbing same as the back. Then knit part B, row count 80 in Fair Isle stitch, yellow, but color change 2 rows yellow, 2 rows brown. Okay, so I have to start with the double color from the ribbing. Then knit line motif according to pattern with brown and yellow. Okay, logical. Knit remainder in Fair Isle stitch with yellow, but color change 2 rows yellow, 2 rows brown. Finish as for figure 1. Okay, so if I understand the pattern correctly, the front is just basically the same as the back, knit-wise, but we're going to knit the lion motif. And the thing I had to read twice was that I have to start with brown up from the ribbing. But the more I think about it, the more it makes sense, because you will see the second color through the first color. You will see brown through the yellow just a little bit when I knit the lion head. So in order to make the entire front look uniform, you have to start with 2 colors, including the brown, from the rib. Yeah, makes sense. Let's do it. Okay, so I have knitted the ribbing, I have rehung on my purl bumps, my needle pushers are out of the pusher rail, my locks are set up for the jacquard, and now I'm going to knit sequences of 4 rows. And on the back panel I knitted 4 rows in yellow, but for the front panel I'm going to knit 2 rows in yellow and 2 rows in brown. Okay, row count 80. So now I have to knit this cute lion motif. So let's set up the deco. And the line is punch card number 12. Let me see. When in doubt, the manual is your best friend. So because I want to knit a single motif, I have to use these little pins. Because I don't want the motif to repeat itself horizontally, I only want to knit it one time. The motif is 40 stitches wide, so this means I'm going to place my pins 2 to 3 stitches from the edge of the entire knitting, below needle number 20, below needle number 21. Okay. And now I have to knit at least 2 rows for the selector to pick up the pattern. But because I don't want to knit 2 more rows, because I'm already at row 80, I'm just going to manually slide the selector over the punch card reader without knitting, so it will pick up the pattern. Now let's knit the lion, continuing in sequences of 4. 2 rows in yellow, 2 rows in brown. And the motif for my lion head is finished. And it was way easier than I thought. I just had to get the manual again how to set it up. It knitted like a breeze. I'm going to remove the deco, so the selector and the card reader. You don't have to remove it, you can totally leave it on the machine. But I just like to remove it. It's a clean slate. And now I'm just going to continue knitting up until the end. Then again, same as the back panel of the sweater. Finishing with 2 rows of circular knitting and then taking it off on waste yarn. So let's continue. And the front panel is finished. Now look how super cute this lion is. Okay, so next on with the sleeves. Let's see what the pattern has to say. Figure number 3, the sleeves. Well, knit twice, okay, that makes sense. Part A is the ribbing, same as the front panel and the back panel. 24 rows, so the ribbing is twice as high. That will probably look really nice when you fold it in half and you wear it. Then switch to Fair Owl motif, which basically means double bed jacquard in yellow, so that's the same as the back panel. Then increase 14 times 2 stitches every 24 rows. Okay, so paying attention to making the right increases. And then when I come at section C, I'm going to switch to brown. And then some other things happen. So I'll just start knitting the rib and knitting part B. And when I get at C, I'll take another look at the pattern again. So basically it's more of the same. I'm really enjoying myself here. Okay, so row 24. So now I'm going to make my first increase. And I have several options. I can do a full fashioned increase with a 3-prong tool or a 2-prong tool. Or I can just do a very simple increase on the side of the carriage. And that is setting 2 needles in working position. That's it. Knit across, 2 needles on the other side. It's not as beautiful as a full fashion increase, but it's fine. It's double bed jacquard fabric and it will still look great. So 1 needle in working position, making sure the latch is closed. Another needle in working position, making sure the latch is closed. Carriage across. Didn't do anything. Okay, so nothing happened. My increase failed. So I think I know why. And that's because I knit on a lot of different knitting machines. And on this knitting machine, I often forget to also activate the pushers. So I added the extra needles, but I didn't add the extra pushers. So I'm going to restore this increase add the pushers, and on the other side I'm going to take revanche and do it correct. Okay, so nothing happened here. These needles are empty. But they should have a stitch on them. So I'm just going to take the pearl bump from the stitch next to it. I'm going to fill in that needle. Same on this side. Take a pearl bump and hang it onto the empty needle. Making sure the latches are closed, replacing the edge springs. Okay, so this is what my increase should have looked like. So now I'm going to add an extra pusher. Same on this side, add an extra pusher. Okay, so this is corrected now. And now I'm going to increase one stitch on this side. So I'm going to add an extra needle, making sure the latch is closed, placing the edge spring, adding an extra pusher. Same on this side, adding an extra needle, moving the edge spring over, making sure the latch is closed, and also adding an extra pusher. Carriage across. That looks more like it. So mistakes are part of the deal. The thing is, I just try to correct them. Now, back to the knitting. Okay, increasing. Add another needle, add another pusher, add another needle, add another pusher. This needle on the back bed didn't knit, but the needle on the front bed did. So I'm also going to hang this pearl bump. Left side, add another needle, add another pusher, add another needle, and add another pusher. Same on this side, the pusher made sure this needle didn't knit. Okay, so I have a problem. Because the pushers on the back bed are in one-to-one division, so some needles knit, some needles don't knit. When I increase, every other increase I make, the needles are not filled with a stitch. So if I had chosen to do a fully fashioned increase, I wouldn't have this problem. But I thought I would make it easy for myself and I just do an increase on the side of the carriage. I can switch to a full fashion increase now, or I can just go on and continue knitting like this. The only thing that I have to pay attention to is that every other increase on the back bed, I have to add the pearl bumps from the stitch next to it. So not ideal, but not a big problem also. That's something to remember for next time. Now continue. Row 320. Okay, so I've finished section B and I'm going to start section C, which is 4 centimeters, 40 rows. And the pattern says C is Fair stitch brown. Okay, so that's fairly simple as well. Instead of using a yellow 4-row repeat, I'm going to use a brown 4-row repeat. (360). Okay, so now it gets interesting. I'm at the end of my sleeve. It says to finish with 6 rows of stocking stitch, lock at back GX, front N. This means I'm only going to knit 6 rows on the front. Then 6 rows stocking stitch, lock at back N, front GX. So that means I'm only going to knit 6 rows on the back. A few rows with contrast yarn, release. This seems to me like you make kind of a sandwich. Front bed stocking stitch, back bed stocking stitch, makes 2 separate fabrics. Sounds like a nice way to sew the sleeves to the body panels afterwards. But I am a little scared. So when I'm only knitting on the back bed or the front bed while still having stitches on either the front or the back bed, I know this machine can handle it. But I don't think this is possible on any other machine that just uses weights. So I'm a bit scared. Let's try it. Front lock N for normal knitting. Reset the row counter. Stitch size stays on 4. Release the arrow keys. Replace the orange strippers with the black ones. Back lock on G, X. Stitch size stays the same. Release the arrow keys. Okay, now knit 6 rows. This is the moment where it's all for nothing or it goes great. One, two, super easy. Well, this is why I love all of my knitting machines. All knitting machines do something slightly different in an excellent way. Now, front lock, G, X, reset row counter, arrow keys are still released, back lock, normal knitting. Arrow keys are still released. Well, that wasn't nearly as scared as I thought it would be, so now knitting it off on waste yarn and I'm finished. And my first sleeve is finished. I start with the ribbing and then I finish with a row of brown. And then I have two separate parts in stockinette, the front and the back bed, which makes like a sandwich. I was a bit scared, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. It was actually quite easy. It's just a technique that I had never done before. But now I know and I think it will turn out great. So let's knit the second sleeve. And with the magic of editing, my second sleeve is also finished. So both sleeves are finished now. All that's left now is sew up the sweater in a garment you can actually wear. Okay, so what does the pattern say? To make up block and press parts, unravel contrast yarn from upper edges of back and front parts. Then graft together the loose stitches on the double row on the front part and do the same on the back part. This is the back. So I'm going to have to graft these two edges together, which makes sense because now there are two rows of open stitches. So I'm going to graft these two rows together to create a nice finished edge. Next step, join back and front part overlapping along shoulders, following the dotted line on the diagram. It doesn't give any directions on which way to overlap, from front to back or from back to front. It doesn't give any measurements, so the pattern assumes I can figure it out myself. Okay, so older patterns assume you can make a lot of the decisions yourself. Okay, let me see. Does this provide any clues? Do I see a seam? I don't see a seam. I do know the neck opening is just plain like this. I can see. It has to overlap like this. Neckline, front, back shoulders. And I'm going for an overlap of 4 centimeters, which means it takes 2 centimeters off each side. And I'm going for about 10 centimeters in this way. And if this is too short or too long, I can always undo this stitching and resew it later after it's been worn. Am I going to do it back over front or front over back? Or am I going to make the seam? Is this overlap? When I sew it to the inside, is that considered overlapping? It might. No, because I spent so much time grafting this edge, I want this edge to be shown. So I'm going to overlap from the back over to the front. I don't see it on the pattern, but I think this is a nice look. Sometimes you just have to improvise. Okay, well, that turned out great. Luckily knitwear is very stretchy and therefore very forgiving. Looking good. Then sew sleeves to side edges, stitch by stitch, back stitching into the open loops. So basically just sew on the sleeve like this. Join sleeve and side seams, final step, just like any other sweater. And we're finished. So what do I think? Well, I think it's a great match. And I'm really pleased with how the project went. It was really nice for a change to knit something out of a magazine. Normally I calculate the patterns myself, but it was all written out, which was really easy to knit. I just had to do what the pattern says, and that was nice for a change. I really like the transition from the sleeve to the front and back panels. It's a really smooth transition. The sleeve was knitted with a sandwich, and that made for the smooth transition. I also must admit, it took a lot of time to finish the sweater. It was also a lot of work grafting the top of the front and the top of the back panel, but that had to be done because there is no ribbing for the neckline. This is the neckline, and now it's beautifully finished. I also thought that knitting the brown starting from the ribbing as the back color made a really nice uniform fabric. So very pleased with that as well. And something else that I didn't do before was using a double thread for the ribbing before transitioning to the double bed jacquard. Because the double bed jacquard really is a thick fabric, you also need a thick ribbing. And if you use the same thread for the double bed jacquard as you do for the ribbing, there's a thickness difference, and this really solved it. So all in all, a great project, and I'm very happy with the outcome. I want to say a big thank you to my channel members for making these videos possible. Thanks. If you want to support me and my channel, please also consider becoming a channel member. Several membership tiers are available. You can click the links below this video. I really enjoyed making this video and I learned some tricks and techniques along the way. I hope you did too. Leave a like on the video, comment, subscribe to my channel. You all know the drill. Thanks. I wish you happy knitting and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!